Morning, everyone. So when we initially prepared the timetable for our modules, we were under the understanding that by now UNISA should be done with the registration process by the 28th of February, but you understand that they have extended that registration process until end of March as well. So it means, and when we looked as well, we also realized that a lot of students had not yet registered, that had already had not completed the registration process as well. So because of that, we are going to move a bit slower than what we had already anticipated on our schedule, so that we're able to accommodate other students as well. And the main agenda for the class today is that we are going to, I'll give you an overview of the module, historically what is expected in the module. And then we'll also discuss accessing the information on the website, because what we do is that for the month of March, you are able to have free access to our website as well. So you're able to have free access to the videos that the limited videos that we make available on our website. So which means that for you to be able to do that, you need to create a user account, and I'll show you exactly how you go about it to create a user account. And the nice thing about that is that you're able to access the material, and you're also able to access the videos from the previous years. So that if you're able to access the videos from the previous years, because we have made open the videos from the previous years for Study Unit 1 to Study Unit 3, and usually from Study Unit 1 to Study Unit 3, we usually cover that material over a period of March, April. That's when we usually cover the material from Study Unit 1 to Study Unit 3. So what we're going to do is that you'll be having access to the videos for that material as well. So that while we are a bit slower and are trying to accommodate other students who are still to put on our platform as well, it would mean you are also at the same time able to go through those videos and study in advance, so that by the time we are starting the class, because in the next class we'll be starting with Unit 1, whether other students have registered or not. In the next class, we'll be starting with Unit 1. But today, I'm just going to show you everything so that you know exactly where is what are we going to do, and what to expect during the year as well. So I'm going to show you how to go about accessing material on the website. Then the third thing on our agenda as well is we are going to go through the schedule, and I'll give you an overview of exactly what our schedule is and what we're expected to do. Then I'm also going to give you historically how the module is evolved, so that you don't get puzzled when you start seeing other things that may not be relevant to you as well. So the first thing that I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through with you the breakdown of the curriculum. Are there any questions before we go through the breakdown of the curriculum? Are there any questions? All right, so when we look at the breakdown of the curriculum, you will see that, so how we offer the classes is that we'll be using the board to do the calculations or to demonstrate something. And at the same time, we will also be using, I'll also be sharing the screen on the different material that I'm going to be going through with you as well, just like what I've done now. So you'll see that when it comes to the material that I'm going to be covering, right? So when it comes to the material that I'm going to be covering, your module for Rsk4803, which is risk financing, it's made up of 6 topics. And remember, the material for the six topics, which is basically the stuff in the study guide that I'm showing you now, you're able to access it on my UNISA as well. So you need to just go on my UNISA and be able to download that material as well. If you don't come right, let me know. Then, so your module is basically made up of 6 topics. And the 6 topics that your module is going to be covering would be the following 6 topics. So it will be the following 6 topics. Just going to highlight it on the screen now. So it will be the following 6 topics. So topic 1, we'll be looking at risk financing, and topic 2 looks at scene theory. Topic 3 looks at risk financing concepts. Topic 4 looks at risk financing, where we look at risk retention. And then topic 5, we look at risk transfer through insurance. And topic 6 looks at insurance-linked securities. So these are the 6 topics that are going to be covering between now until end of October. So by end of October, we should be done going through these topics. So how we are going to be, so you will see that during the course of the year, as per the timetable, we are going to be using that over the timetable that we're going to be looking at there. We're going to be looking at the different those articles and the study units that are found under these topics, and we're also going to be assisting you with assignments. So when it comes to the assignments as well, expect that we're going to be assisting you with assignments. Now it will depend on exactly how the assignments are structured. Those assignments which are made up of short questions. So there are certain assignments where these assignments, I will also indicate to you exactly when we go through these assignments. There are certain assignments where you are expected to know this material for review purposes so that you're able to apply it in the field when you're now applying your risk management skills. But at the same time, there are certain assignments which you don't expect to be asked, or the certain assignments where the questions you don't necessarily expect them to be asked in the exam as well. Then there are assignments which are structured. The structured assignments are those with questions you should expect to encounter in the exam. But when I go to those assignments with you, I'll also highlight to you to say, these assignments, yes, just make sure that you know how to answer these questions, but don't necessarily expect them to be the same structure of how they ask questions in the exam. Then certain assignments which are structured with structured questions, those are the assignments that you should expect what in the exam as well. So the assignments will also do them according to the timetable when on the days that we're supposed to be meeting. Because remember, what they do is they'll open up an assignment for a month or so before its due date. So because they open up an assignment for a month or so before its due date, it basically means that I will tell you to say on this particular date, that's when we're going to be doing a certain assignment as well. If it's an assignment that we need to do in class, which is basically based on what structured questions as well. So I'll also indicate and communicate with you during the course of the year as well. Then so we need to be going through these topics 1 to topic 6 between now until end of October. The period of November, December, January, until you write your exams in, sometimes it's January, sometimes it can be February, but usually for Rsk4803, it's usually January, if not end of January for Rsk4803. So you see that also, so which means that during that revision period, what we'll go through with you is that we are going to go through reviewing the current year's assignments, which we see that there is material that is relevant for the exam. Then we'll also review the previous year's assignments where necessary. And then we'll also review the past question papers as well, the past question papers as well. Our commitment is during the revision period, we are going to go through with you the 2023 exams and the 2022 exams in class. Then if we have more time, we go backwards to the other previous exam as well. But what we have done is that we've built a database of videos as well from around 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. We have videos of each exam paper where we have videos which we recorded where we go through each question paper, so which means that each question paper, whether it's the Jan, Feb, or it's May, June, the videos are already available so that you're able, so that during the revision period, you as a student are able to access that database and utilize that database as well, because it's quite an extensive database that we have. Now, on the revision period, during the revision period as well, we are going to be going through with you the there is also going to be there is past question papers that will open up during the revision period, and then there's also memos to those question papers, which are already typed, so and also converted into PDF format as well. So which means that during the revision period, we'll make available to you, over and above the videos going through the past papers as well, we'll make available to you the question papers and as well as what? The memos to those question papers. So we'll make available the question papers as well as the memos to the question papers from the year 2017 going through all the way to what? To 2023, which is the current year. So which means that by the time we get to the revision period, we should have made the 2023 question paper memo available as well, so that you're able to utilize it during the revision period as well. So are there any questions regarding what to expect during the revision, what to expect during the course of the year, before we go in detail what is covered under these different topics as well? Are there any questions? So looking at the topic one, when you look at topic one is made up of study unit 1 to study unit 3. So topic 1 is made up of study unit 1 to study unit 3. Please take note. For study unit 1, please take note. If you look at what is involved or what is covered in study unit 1, you see that for study unit 1, they look at lessons not learned, right? So they look at lessons not learned, right? And when you look at the lessons not learned there, you see that for unit 1.1, they look at suspending the principles of financial management and governance, which looks at transforming energy the Eskom way. So they basically give us, when you look at lessons not learned, when it comes to risk management failures as well, they give us the case study of Eskom. So in class, so how the lecturer normally brings you the questions in the exam, if they give you, if they want to ask you a question based on a particular case study in the exam, they will give you information for that case study. And based on the information of that case study, you answer questions based on the information given for that case study. So don't expect for risk financing to be asked questions where they'll ask you to ask questions which are more or less based on general knowledge, to say, so what do you think about Eskom, blah, 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 all those kind of things as well. Don't really expect that type of questioning when it comes to risk financing as well. Because what they usually do, they give you information on a case study, and then based on the information given on the case study, they'll expect you to answer questions from a risk financing perspective as well. So for you to know, for application purposes in practice, that's why they are giving you these case studies in study unit 1. So when you look at study unit 1.1 to unit 1.4, you see that it's different case studies where there's risk management failures, but at the same time, you are not necessarily expected to, it's not necessarily that you are going to be expecting that these questions are going to be asked. They are going to be asked questions in the exam, specifically given from what case studies that are given there. So my advice would be, for unit 1.1 to unit 1.4, go through the case studies, so that from a practical perspective, from an application perspective, you are able to understand exactly what is meant and where the risk management failures basically are materialized when it comes to from a risk financing perspective. So for unit 1.1 to 1.4, we are not necessarily going to go through unit 1.1 to 1.4 with you in class, because we don't see it as something that is necessarily of importance when it comes to preparing for the exam. But when it comes to, from an application perspective, yes, it's very, very important. But when it comes to from an exam perspective, where as we are preparing you for the exam, and so that you know exactly what to expect coming into the exam as well, you should know that unit 1.1 to 1.4, you shouldn't necessarily spend too much of your time going through that study unit where you're trying to make notes and doing all those kind of things as well, as if you're preparing for the exam. Go through the articles, go through the case studies, but don't spend too much of your time when it comes to preparing for the exam, when it comes to unit 1.1 to 1.4. So from an application perspective, in real life, from a real life perspective, yes, it's important so that you're able to understand exactly where risk management failures are and how they basically materialize. But when it comes to the preparation for the exam, don't spend too much of your time going through these particular sections as well. So unit 1.1, they give us information regarding suspending the principles of financial management and governance, transforming energy the ESCOM way. So you will see that when it comes to the articles that we have made available to you, or that we have already downloaded and made a bit of notes on them as well, when it comes to unit 1.1 to 1.4, the articles are already downloaded. And once you are registered, or once you have a user account on our website, you are able to access those articles. But at the same time, you should also note that you don't spend too much of your time when it comes to unit 1.1 to 1.4. Then 1.2, they also look at, we have a table arbitrator. Leave him alone as he's making money. So this is basically where they are looking at the case study of Barings Bank, where there's a trader called Nick Leeson. He was basically, because of, he was taking advantage of the lack of enforcement of the internal systems when it comes to what monitoring of the bank activities as well, where there's a separation between the front office, the middle office, and the back office as well. He was able to actually basically find himself being able to manipulate the processes in the front office, the back office, and the middle office as well. And because of that, this is basically what really materialized in what risk management failures. So from a practical perspective, to see exactly what really causes risk management failures and how in practice they can also materialize as well, you can go through the article for unit 1.2, but please don't spend too much of your time. Understand what really happened, but don't spend too much of your time on it. Then there's also another company, HIH, which is basically was an insurance company as well. And they're basically giving you a brief background of exactly what really led to the fall of HIH. I think it was an Australian company. It was an Australian insurer as well. What really made to the failure of that particular insurance company as well, and how the board, and also the management also contributed towards what the failure of this particular insurance company as well. So you can go through it from an application perspective, but not necessarily from a perspective where you're trying to prepare your exams. Then there's also unit 1.4, which looks at ComAir, where with ComAir, it's basically an airline. And one of the issues that they had, where the risk management basically failed, is basically where they failed to anticipate the failure of their system, and they didn't put in place measures that in case their system fails, how are they going to be able to mitigate the failures that come about from negative externalities as well. So that's basically where the case study of ComAir basically comes in, where because there was bookings and cancellations because of bad weather conditions, it also led to a situation where the system basically reached its maximum limit or its monthly limit, where it was no longer able to accommodate any more bookings because there were so many cancellations and new bookings as well. And the system, they didn't know that the system had the maximum number of bookings that it can take, but at the same time, the system did reach the maximum number of bookings that it took as well. And because they didn't have a system in place to actually mitigate such failures as well, it basically led to commotion and also problems within the airliners when it comes to their booking system as well. So just go through the unit 1.4 so that you're able to understand exactly, so what are risk management failures, and basically how do they emanate from a practical perspective as well, and what are the loopholes that you could have actually identified when it comes to these case studies from a real life practical perspective when it comes to application as well. So unit 1.4, unit 1.1, unit 1.4, go through the articles, but don't spend too much of your time, because it's not something that I would say it's necessarily something that we have to dwell so much time on when it comes to preparation for the exam. Are there any questions so far? Now, after Unit 1.4, there is also Unit 1.5, which looks at risk management failures and what are they and when do they happen. So Unit 1.5 looks at risk management failures, what are they and when do they happen? And they also give a case study of LTCM, and then they also give you more information on exactly what are the risks and how do you measure the risk, and how do you what are they, and how do you now distinguish between known risks and unknown risks as well. And then then you also look at communication failures to say, so how do communication failure also results in what risk management failures as well. So you can go through this particular article lightly. So Unit 1.5 and Unit 1.6. Unit 1.6 looks at what a difference a word makes, and it gives us the acronym VUCA, right? Now, when you look at this particular acronym VUCA, you see that it's basically what we are basically saying that when it comes to the world we're living in now, we're living in a global community, right? And because we're living in a global community, it basically means that if you compare risk management from 50 years ago and risk management from today's perspective, there's quite a big difference when it comes to how you look at risk management as well. Reason being, because of the progress in the internet and information technology as well, you will see that communication is made easier. And because communication has been made easier through the internet as well, you will see that now a person is not only limited to be able to buy goods from their local producer, like basically from their local producer where they are only able to buy, if it's a small town in Queenstown, they are only able to buy goods from their local producer. Because of the advancements in information technology, they are also able to order goods from other national suppliers. They are also able to order goods from even international suppliers as well. And then they will find a way of actually delivering those goods to that particular individual as well. Even if the individual is coming from a small town. So because of this, it basically means that you as a company, you are no longer worried about competition from people within your small community. You're also worried about communication with international potential suppliers as well. Which also means that even when you look at it from a risk management perspective as well, your risk, the factors that also result in risk management failures, they are not only going to be emanating from factors within the small community. They are now coming from even what events that are happening internationally as well. That's why you see that, for example, when it comes to the issue of the COVID pandemic as well, there was quite a high transmission rate, mainly because people are able to now move more quicker when it comes to international travel as well. Because back in the days, people were using horses and they were using cows and carts as well. So you see that it would take someone a couple of days to go to the next town or to go to somewhere else. But now it only takes a couple of hours. Even the worst case scenario, you can look at someone who's traveling, maybe let's say for 24 hours going to overseas, like maybe going to the US or going to UK or even going to Asia as well. So the amount of time that one needed to take to go to the next town because of the mode of communication is now the same amount of time that someone can also utilize to go overseas, which is basically quite a vast difference when it comes to the time as well. So which also means that because of this, it basically means that when it comes to risk management, it has become more and more complex because of the globalization of the international community as well. So when you look at the VUCA acronym basically emanates from, is basically an acronym that represents volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity as well. So they're basically saying that all these factors, when you're now in running your organization, you are going to be facing all these factors, and all these factors are going to be coming and playing as factors that are going to be affecting your risk management decisions as well, all at once. So how are you able to now ensure that you're able to mitigate the effects of all these factors in your day-to-day operational planning as well? So you will see that Unit 1.5 and Unit 1.6, when you look at the previous, because remember the reason why I was talking about the curriculum being relevant from 2017 to currently now, because if you look at 2016 going backwards, the exam was based on a textbook. So there was a textbook that UNISA was using, but now when it comes to the textbooks can only be utilized for a given period of time. After a given period of time, they have to make sure that they change that particular book. And because they changed the book and they couldn't find another book that they can also use to replace, the lecturer now compiled articles that instead of the students going through another book as well, the students had to go through articles. And when it comes to those articles, it basically means that now the articles were now giving they were contributing towards what the message of the body that the lecturer was trying to put across when it comes to a particular topic as well. So because of this, that's why you see that there is quite when it comes to your articles, you will see that each article can be quite having a lot of pages. Some articles, they can be 30 pages, some articles can be 50 pages, some articles can be shorter, but most of them, they are having quite a lot of pages as well. So what we have done over the years is that we have highlighted those articles based on, so we've highlighted those articles based on what to expect when it comes to the lesson outcomes. So which means that how we have gone through to highlighting those articles, so that when you go through these articles, you're not necessarily going to go through everything. You are going through exactly the message that the lecturer is trying to put across to you as a student as well. We went through the articles and highlighted the articles based on what? Self-assessment. So under self-assessment questions, this is where they give you to say, on this article, this and this and this is what you're expected to know from this particular article. Then, which means that the information which is not relevant, we leave it out. Then we will highlight the articles based on what? The information that we deem to be relevant for you going into the exam and in preparing for the exam as well. So that's basically how we have done, streamlined the articles, because you see that even if you look at the case studies of ESCOM as well, it's quite a lot of pages that you have to go through. That's why I was saying that you will find that sometimes without a proper guidance, a student would end up spending quite a long period of time going through the articles for case studies of ESCOM and ComAir and all these other companies as well, when in actual fact, it's not necessarily things that you can say, when it comes to the exam, you should know this material as well. So to try to ensure that we're trying to get straight to the point on exactly what the lecturer is expecting you to know from articles as well, we have highlighted those articles so that you're able to go through it, which would make it easier for students to go through the material in preparation for the exam as well. So unit 1.5 and 1.6, it's something that we say is likely to come in the exam. So it's likely to come in the exam, although when we look at the previous years, it has never really been asked. So there's never been a question that has been asked in the exam in relation to unit 1.5 and 1.6. But you need to go through it and understand it, because in the future, the lecturer can also refer to those study units and ask a question from those study units as well. So although there's not been a previous question asked from unit 1.5 and 1.6, it's concepts which are likely to come in the exam, because there's certain ways that the lecturer can also format it to ask you questions in the exam as well. And because of that, would advise you to go through unit 1.5 and 1.5 or 1.6 in preparation for the exam. Although the lecturer has never really asked those questions from those study units in the exam as well. So this is what you need to make sure that you prepare yourself when it comes to study unit 1 for topic 1 as well. So is there any questions from what we've discussed coming from study unit 1? Any questions? Study unit 2 looks at enterprise risk management. So study unit 2 looks at enterprise risk management, and study unit 2 is one of those study units which are highly examinable. And usually when they bring questions in the exam, they usually bring these questions as theory questions. It can either be a 10-mark question, or a 50-mark question, or a 20-mark question. Usually it would be within that particular range as well. So study unit 2, over the years, we have seen that it's one of those topics which are highly examinable because there's quite a lot of different angles that they can ask questions coming from study unit 2. So study unit 2 on 2.1, they look at the article, the business case of strategic risk management. And here, the main thing there is basically looking at wicked problems. We're going to go through them with you when we go through in the next class. And then unit 2.2 looks at understanding and managing complexity. And here there is quite of this is where the main thing being that how do you ensure that your organization is adaptive enough to ensure that what you're able to mitigate the effects of these risk factors, but not only mitigate the effects of risk factors, but the main message coming from study unit 2 is when it comes to these exogenous factors that can affect your organization. Exogenous factors is basically those risk factors which are coming from external or which are basically not within the control of the organization. Like, for example, when you look at the effect of the pandemic, or when you look at the effect of the recessions as well, it's basically those risk factors which are not necessarily within the control of the organization. So the main message from study unit 2 is how do you ensure that you as your organization, you prepare for these potential risk factors materializing? And how do you ensure that when these risk factors materialize, how do you ensure that you're able to mitigate the effect of these risk factors? But now, you as an organization, you need to ensure that you are adaptive enough to not only mitigate the effect of these risk factors, but also create a competitive advantage for your organization. So a typical example is where you find that many organizations that didn't have a risk management plan, when the pandemic hit, they didn't really have a plan on exactly how are going to mitigate the effects of the pandemic. And you find that in most cases, when you look at the company that is over leveraged as well, they've borrowed too much money, they don't have a cash reserve to keep the company alive as well. And at the same time, they're having a lot of financial obligations. Although the banks try to give people holidays when it comes to payments of their normal obligations during the pandemic because of the shutdowns as well, it was not necessarily enough to be able to cover the effects of these expenses that can also materialize when the organization is not running. But we will look at it as well. You also see a picture or a diagram that is also of interest in study unit 8, where we look at cost of risk as well. So when it comes to this, so we're basically saying that it's not only enough to plan and mitigate the effects of these exogenous factors when they materialize. You need to go further and see exactly how do we create a competitive advantage for organization so that we're able to, because remember, with every organization, you have competitors, unless you're if you're a monopoly. With every organization, you have competitors. And now when it comes to the changes in economic conditions are basically what makes an organization either survive or thrive and make a lot of and give and increase the value of the organization. Because remember, say the goal of the firm is to maximize shareholders' wealth. And how do we maximize shareholders' wealth? By maximizing the share price. So which means as well, when the risk management function is also very much linked to the goal of the firm, which is to maximize shareholders' wealth. Because if you don't have a risk management plan in place to mitigate these exogenous factors when they materialize, it basically means that your organization is going to go down because share price is going to go down and everything goes down. And then maybe at some point you might be forced to liquidate as well. But if you have a planning in place to ensure that you're adaptive enough, when such conditions materialize, you can now be able to actually mitigate the effects and also create a competitive advantage where you're able to be able to provide a service for the clients, even regardless of the current conditions that are being experienced as well. So that's basically the main message coming from study unit 2. So you see that from study unit 2, you also look at strategic thinking at the top. Then they also give you integrating risk into strategic planning, which is 2.4. Remember this, there's no article. 2.4, 2.5, there's no article. 2.5 looks at developing a strategic risk management culture. There's no article for it. 2.6 looks at strategic risk assessment process. There's no article for it. We go through the study guide. Then 2.7 looks at beyond risk mitigation. There's an article that we need to go through that. Then there's also creating synergy by integrating enterprise risk management and governance as well. And 2.9 looks at applying knowledge management in enterprise risk management. Is there any value in using knowledge management and enterprise risk management systems as well? Then 2.10 looks at optimal enterprise risk management and decision making with shared and dependent risks as well. So when you, and 2.11 looks at scenario-based strategy maps. And then, so looking at all these, it's basically going back to the same point that I've highlighted to you, that when it comes to not only planning for these exogenous factors or for as part of your risk management process, but also mitigating them and seeing exactly how do we create a competitive advantage regardless of the exogenous factors, which are basically these negative exogenous factors that are basically affecting our organization as well. Unit 3 looks at capital in enterprise. So the main thing that looks at Unit 3, remember we have that equation which says, your assets is equal to equity plus liabilities. So we have that equation which says your assets is equal to equity plus liabilities. So Unit 3 gives us a breakdown to say, how do we look at equity and how do we look at liabilities? And over and above this as well, why do we have equity and why do we have liabilities when it comes to the assets of the business? Remember, the assets of the business is basically the value of the firm. So this is basically what gives us the value of the firm. But now Unit 3 also goes on further to say, in financing the organization, yes, we need this paid-in capital through equity and liabilities, but we also need risk capital. So from a risk financing perspective, from a risk management perspective as well, over and above this paid-in capital, which is equity and liabilities, how do we now encompass the risk capital? So Unit 3 basically now shows us the relationship. Say, so how does risk capital contribute towards the financing of the business as well? And how do we now see how it contributes towards ensuring that the business is able to continue running regardless of the changes in economic conditions as well? So that's basically what you're going to be looking at Unit 3. So I'm not going to go through it in detail with you now, but you see that Unit 3 basically gives us that breakdown. So you will see that for Unit 3, so Unit 3, 3.1, we look at the introduction on what is capital. Then 3.2, they give us an article, Theory of Risk Capital in Financial Firms. And then 3.2, they give us integrating risk management and capital management. And 3.4 looks at risk management, risk capital, and the cost of capital. And 3.5 looks at risk management and cost of capital for operating assets. And 3.6 looks at towards a more complete model of optimal capital structure. And then 3.7 looks at linking strategic and tactical planning systems for asset and liability management. And all these topics, they are basically going back to the accounting equation to say, so how are these different components of capital contributing towards financing the business, and how is risk management activities also contribute towards the value of the organization? Because remember, we're saying, if you still remember from undergrad as well, the goal of the firm is to maximize shareholders' wealth. And how do you maximize shareholders' wealth? By maximizing the share price, right? Which also means that if you're able to maximize the share price, you're also able to maximize the value of the firm. So by maximizing the share price, you're also maximizing the value of the firm, which is basically meeting the goal of the firm as well. So we'll go through that in Study Unit 3. So this is basically what is covered in topic 1. Topic 2 looks at decision theory. So topic 2 looks at decision theory. And when you look at decision theory, it's study unit 4 all the way to 7. So it's study unit 4 all the way to study unit 7. And for study unit 4, they look at the philosophical context in decision theory. And under this unit, we have unit 4.1, which looks at problems with probabilities. We're going to go through it in detail as well to understand exactly, so how do probabilities work, and what really is the problem that you also encounter when you're looking at probabilities, and how can you be able to apply probabilities in your everyday risk management activities as well. So that's basically what we're going to be looking at unit 4.1 and 4.2. And 4.2 looks at homo heuristics in the financial world, from risk management to managing uncertainty. And 4.2, the main message coming from 4.2 is that when it comes to, remember we said that we're living in a global community where there is constant flow of information. If you sit on a given day and watch the news, you'll see that there is just constant bombardment of information that you're also going to be receiving as well. So now, when it comes to 4.2, we're now basically saying that you as the decision maker from a risk management perspective, how do you make decisions? So this is basically where you look at the use of making decisions through homo heuristics, where you're now trying to say, how do you skim through the information that you're given and only look at the information that you deem to be relevant, and so that you're able to make your decision quicker? Because if you now try to gather as much information as possible as well, you might find that it will take time for you to make a decision. And by the time you make that decision, the economic situation will probably would have changed as well. So 4.3 also looks at philosophical basis of cost risk benefit analysis. So it also gives us the information regarding cost risk benefit analysis, where we're saying that when it comes to your cost and risk, the idea is that you want to minimize your cost and risk, but at the same time, you want to be able to maximize your benefits as well. Then unit 5 looks at moral hazard and adverse selection. So we're going to be looking to see exactly, so what really is moral hazard, and how does it affect, how does moral hazard affect what risk management, right? Remember, the idea behind moral hazard is that when you look at moral hazard, you're basically saying, from a risk management perspective, you find that in most cases, moral hazard basically materializes from a case where you have for example, if it's from an insurance perspective, you have the insurer and you have the insured. So moral hazard basically comes in from the perspective where we're saying, the moment the insured knows that they have an insurance policy that is catering for them, so that in case of a risk event, they are going to be covered by the insurer, they become neglect, or they don't put in place measures to ensure that they don't suffer from a loss as well. So because they become neglect, or they don't put in place measures to ensure that they don't suffer from a loss as well, it basically means that there's now going to be a situation where they're just going to not worry about the implications of the costs when it comes to effects of the loss event. But at the same, which basically going to be disadvantaging the insurer as well. And we will also look to see exactly, so how does the insurance company also ensure that they have a risk partnership between the insurer and the insured, so that they try to do away with the issues of moral hazard as well. So it's basically what is covered in study unit 5. Study unit 6 looks at utility theory, right? Remember, when it comes to utility, by definition, utility is the satisfaction that one derives from the use of a particular asset, right? So it's the satisfaction that one derives from the use of a particular asset or resource. So which means, by looking at this as well, when you look at utility theory, we're basically looking from an insurance perspective to say, so from a utility theory, how do insurance companies ensure that when they are pricing their insurance products, they are pricing in such a way that the insured is able to see that they are better off being insured than being uninsured. So the utility that they get from being insured should be higher than the utility that they derive from being what? Uninsured. The moment it's like that, basically means that you will see that a client is going to be more inclined to get an insurance cover from a risk management perspective than what? Not being insured as well. So you see that unit 6.1 and 6.2, that's basically the main thing or the main message that they're basically trying to bring forth there. Unit 7 looks at decision-making techniques. So you're now going to bring in decision-making techniques to say, so as a decision maker, now when you're making decisions from a risk management perspective, you're going to be facing uncertainty. So now the main message being, how do you distinguish between a situation of uncertainty and a situation of risk? So we're going to go through it. I will explain it in detail when we go through those particular sections as well. So we need to be able to distinguish between a situation of uncertainty and a situation of risk. And now that you have now been able to identify situations of risk that you say, okay, these are the ones that are relevant to me in my decision making, how do you now, you see that there's going to be different scenarios that you are likely to play out going into the future, because you cannot predict the future with certainty, isn't it? So there's going to be different scenarios that you're going to be facing as well. So how do you ensure that whatever decision that you make, your benefits are going to be more than your costs? So this is where we look at the strategic net present value assessment, where you're now going to say, from a strategic net present value perspective, how do we ensure that the present value of my benefits before I make a decision is greater than the present value of my costs? Because remember, from an economic perspective, you always say you are making a good economic decision when your benefits are more than your cost. So that's basically where the net present value concept or theory is coming from as well. You're saying when you make a decision as well, how do you ensure that the present value of your benefits is more than the present value of your costs? But now, because you're faced with a lot of uncertainty as well, there's going to be a risk that you have to filter in determining the present value of your costs and your present value of your benefit. And that's basically what we're going to be looking at in study unit 7. So you'll see that in study unit 7, when you look at decision analysis, when you look at optimal enterprise risk management and decision making with shared and independent risks, when we look at scenario-based strategy maps, when we look at real options theory and strategic management, also when we look at strategic net present value, real options and strategic games under different information structures as well, the main message there is that you are trying to make decisions, and as you are trying to make decisions as well, how do you ensure that the present value of your benefits is more than the present value of your costs? And how do you now ensure that you're able to properly filter in the different scenarios that can play out going into the future as well? Then from study unit 7, there is also a section from study unit 7 which is going to be looking at material from DSC 2602. So DSC 2602 is a module that is covered. It's a second-year module. So it's a second-year module which looks at rational decision-making. So it's a second-year module which looks at rational decision-making. So in this second-year module, you'll see that in the chapters that of the textbook that they are referring you to, they give you chapters which looks at probability concept, probability distributions, estimations, and decision analysis as well. So when you look at this particular section, you'll see that here the information for the DS 2602 is given to you under this as well. So these are the different pages that are also covering the information for DSC 2602. Now, my advice would be, when it comes to this particular section, from an application perspective, when it comes to knowing decision making and from a statistical perspective, right? From a statistics perspective, in real life, you need to know this material so that this material also equips you in quantifying the risk events that are the risk of the events and how you are able to determine the different probability, how you're able to determine your decision making as well when you're filtering in the effect of different events as well. So from a statistical perspective. So in real life, you need to know it. From an exam perspective, not so much. So, but please note, when it comes to assignments, expect questions to be asked here. So there is a question that you should expect to be asked when it comes to the assignment coming from this particular section, but not necessarily so much when it comes to preparing for the exam. So this is where you need to now be very cautious when it comes to dealing with this material. When it comes to the assignments, yes, there is year in, year out, they always ask questions in the assignments regarding DSC 2602 material. But when it comes to the exam, not so much. Yes, there is some sections in DSC 2602 that they'll ask you in the exam, but those sections are also covered in other study units. Like, for example, when we look at study unit 11, this is where some of these sections are also covered as well. And because of this, this is why I'm saying, go through it, but don't spend too much of your time going through this particular material as well. You will see that even when we go through these particular sections during the year as well, I've already made a video from study unit 7. So I made a video from study unit 7 where I covered the relevant chapters or the relevant chapter that needs to be covered under this section, which looks at DSC 2602 material. I've made a video already. So from an application perspective in real life, if you want to be able to know in detail exactly how do they calculate this particular statistical component concepts which are covered under this section as well, you can go to that video so that you're able to have a deeper understanding. But it's not something that I'd say spend too much of your time on when it comes to preparing for the exam as well. Are we on the same page? Any questions so far? Now, looking at topic 3. Topic 3 looks at risk financing concepts. So topic 3 looks at risk financing concepts. And for topic 3 covers unit 8, unit 9, and unit 10. So unit 10, there is in March there. Unit 8 looks at the cost of risk. Now, the concept coming from cost of risk, they are highly examinable. So when it comes to the concept of cost of risk concepts, which I say they are highly examinable, this is basically where you look at what components makes up the cost of risk and how are you able to calculate and ascertain the cost of risk as well. So you see that unit 8.1, they refer you to the article which looks at the cost of risk and the concept of risk partnership. Then they also look at unit 8.2, which looks at cost of risk, a balancing act, and they refer you to a particular article there. Then 8.3 gives you objectives in minimizing the cost of risk. And then these objectives, they are also highly examinable as well. Then they also look at the components of the cost of risk, where they say the 4 components of cost of risk are insurance cost, unreimbursed losses, risk control and loss prevention expenditure, and administrative costs. And here, they'll also now go on and explain in detail what these components are as well. Please take note, when it comes to the exam, study unit 8 is a highly examinable study unit. The reason why it's a highly examinable study unit is basically because you are trying to quantify your risk management, your cost of risk. So because you're trying to quantify your cost of risk as well, you now need to be able to understand exactly what is the quantity that you are basically catering for when it comes to the cost of risk. And based on this as well, how much of this cost of risk are you retaining for your account, and how much of this risk are you transferring to the insurance? Because remember, when it comes to risk management as well, you will see that when it comes to your risk factors, two things can happen. is either you're able to transfer the risk or you're going to retain the risk. Like for example, if when it comes to your vehicle, you have two options. It's either you can transfer the risk to the insurer by insuring your vehicle, or you can retain the risk by not insuring the vehicle. The moment you don't insure the vehicle or transfer the risk to the insurer, basically means you're retaining. Then there's also a hybrid that you find there, where you can find yourself somewhere in between, where some of your risk you're partly transferring and some of your risk you're partly what? Retaining as well. So it's not all the time that it's going to be either or. Some of it, you can partly transfer the risk and also partly retain the risk. Like for example, when it comes to insurance, for example, is where you look at the concept of excess on your insurance coverage. Where when it comes to excess on your insurance coverage, you see that when your insurer can say, whenever you suffer damages up to if your excess amount is, let's say, 3,000, it means that when you have an accident on your vehicle, the first 3,000 of the cost of the loss that you're going to suffer because of the accident, you are going to be the one who's going to be catering for that amount. Then any amount over and above the 3,000 is the amount that the insurer is going to be covering for you as well. So what does that mean? It means you're having a hybrid between transferring the risk and retaining the risk as well. So which basically means that now when it comes to this particular study unit as well, it basically means that you are trying to have a better understanding of exactly, so what are the different components that makes up your cost of risk? And remember, how they would usually give you such questions in the exam is that the reason why it's highly examinable is that in the exam, they can either bring it as a theory question or they can bring it as a what? Calculation question as well. So it can be a theory question or it can be a calculation question where they give you a case study, and based on the case study, they ask you to calculate the components of the cost of risk, and overall, then they ask you to determine exactly what is the overall cost of risk when it comes to what this particular company as well. So the reason why it's highly examinable is mainly because there are different ways that the lecturer can also ask you these questions, questions coming from this particular study unit. So it's a very important and highly examinable study unit. So please make sure that you take note of it. Moving on to Unit 8. Unit 9 looks at risk appetite and optimization under budgetary constraints. So under study Unit 9, remember we said that when it comes to our risk, when it comes to the organization, we want to be able to minimize our costs, minimize our risk, but maximize our benefits. So Unit 9 basically now looks more in depth on exactly how do you reach to a particular balance to say, I'm able to minimize my risk, minimize my costs, and also maximize my benefits. Because if I'm able to do this, by basically saying that if you're able to have that relationship where you are maximizing your benefits and you're minimizing your costs, what does that mean? It means you're able to maximize the value of the firm. And remember, we said the goal of the firm is to maximize shareholders' wealth. So for you to be able to maximize shareholders' wealth, it basically means that you need to be able to maximize the difference between your benefits and your cost and your risk as well. So that's basically the main message coming from study Unit 9. But then they go on further to say, it basically means that for you to reach that optimum level, not everyone is able to achieve or can afford the premium. But for example, for you to be able to reach that particular optimum level, for example, you can say it means that you need to pay, for example, 2,000 Rand as a premium for your insurance component, right? So for insurance, for you to be able to reach that point where you're able to maximize your benefits and minimize your risk and your benefit and your costs as well, you need to pay a premium of what? 2,000 Rand. But we know that not everyone is able to afford that premium of 2,000 Rand, which means that there is now going to be a constraint which limits you from being able to reach that optimization level, which means now you're not going to say, so what does that mean when you're now going to be having budgetary constraints? So what is the implications of you having what? Budgetary constraints when it comes to the relationship between your benefits, your risk, and your costs. And that's basically what we're going to be covering when it comes to study Unit 9. So all these study units that are going to be covered in study Unit 9 That's basically the main message there. Study Unit 10 looks at the overview of risk financing. So now Study Unit 10 basically gives you an overview assessment of things that we have covered so far and where we are going to be going when it comes to risk financing as well. So which means it gives you an overview of what we've covered so far and where we are going when it comes to risk financing. So it's basically giving you more or less a breakdown of what I've already given to you. So when it comes to risk, it's either you retain the risk or you transfer the risk. And then we're going to look at the different components that also makes up retention and transfer of risk as well. Are there any questions so far? Moving on to Study Unit 11. Study Unit 11 is also another highly examinable study unit. So Study Unit 11 comes from the topic 4, which looks at risk retention. And topic 4, study unit, which is Study Unit 11, 12, 13, and 14. They are very, very highly examinable concepts. I've never seen an exam where they don't ask you any one of these, or a lot of questions coming from these from topic 4. So it's a very important, highly examinable topic. So Study Unit 11 looks at risk retention. So remember we said when it comes to your risk, you can either choose to retain the risk or you can choose to transfer the risk. So if you decide to retain the risk, what are the implications of what you come across when you decide what? Retain the risk. Then, which basically means that you will see that from Study Unit 11, they look at risk retention, then they also look at calculation of the maximum probable yearly loss. We're going to look at it in detail. I don't want to confuse you too much now. Just know that we're going to be looking at the calculation of the maximum probable yearly loss, where we're now going to say, if we decide to, remember, the main message there is that if you are going to choose as an organization to say, yes, we want to retain the risk, do you have the willingness to retain the risk? But over and above that as well, do you have the capacity to retain the risk? So there's always a difference between willingness to retain risk and the capacity to retain the risk. Because an individual or an organization can say, you know what, we are seeking to retain the risk. If you seek to retain the risk, it basically means that in case of a loss event, we are basically saying that we want to cater for that loss. We want to cover the cost of that loss event from our own account. But at the same time, if you say that you are willing to retain the risk as well, does it necessarily mean that you have the capacity as an organization to say, if the loss event happens, it does not necessarily going to end up affecting your operational activities? Because remember, the moment your operational activities are affected, in the short run, it also affects your profitability. And in the long run, it also affects the value of the firm as well. But remember, at the end of the day, we're basically saying that the goal of the firm is to maximize shareholders' wealth. And for us to be able to maximize shareholders' wealth, we need to make sure that whatever we do, our activities should be able to maximize the value of the firm. And for us to be able to do that, it basically means that if we choose to retain the risk, are we saying we have the capacity to retain the risk so that in case of a loss event, it's not going to affect our operational activities, which end up affecting the value of the firm as well. So that's basically the main message that is basically covered is that Unit 11. We're now looking to say, so this is basically what you should expect to see if you choose to retain the risk. And how do you now come about with the decision to say, yes, we are in a position to be able to retain that risk as well. So one of the models that is used in assessing whether the company or how much risk exposure an organization has is where we look at the calculation of the maximum probable yearly loss. So we're going to look at these issues of deductibles later on. I don't want to go too much in detail when it comes to these concepts that are covered there. I'm basically giving you an overview so that you understand exactly what is happening. So you see that, remember I said from Study Unit 2. Is it Study Unit 2? In start unit 7, let me just quickly refer back. Is start unit 7 where we looked at DSC2602 material. Yes, from start unit 7. Remember I said that there's also going to be some statistical calculations that you need to know, or some calculations that you need to know from a statistical perspective. It's now coming in back again for study unit 11, where from a statistical perspective, for you to calculate what we call referred to as the maximum probable yearly loss, to say under normal circumstances, this is the maximum loss that we're expecting to suffer over a given period of time. So do we have the capacity to mitigate the effect of this maximum loss? So which also means, based on that, you will see that there is annexure in this particular annexure A, which is a very important annexure, highly examinable. They now say, for you to calculate the maximum probable yearly loss, you need to be able to calculate the expected value, and we'll see how to calculate the expected value. We need to be able to calculate the standard deviation, and we'll see exactly how to calculate the standard deviation. Then from there are different models which are used to calculate the maximum probable yearly loss. But of these different models, the most important one is where we use what we refer to as the Chebyshev model, or the Chebyshev theorem. So with the Chebyshev theorem, this is basically where we calculate the maximum probable yearly loss using this particular calculation there. But we'll look at it in detail. Don't worry about it for now. Just know that when the time comes, we're going to be referring to this is the model that we're going to use. What it is and how the calculations are done, don't worry about it for now. So you will see that an extra B for study unit 11, it's very, very important as well, because they are now showing us exactly as an example how we calculate the maximum probable yearly loss using the Chebyshev model as well, where you need to calculate the expected value, you need to calculate the standard deviation. Then after you calculate the standard deviation there as well, you're now going to say, when it comes to the maximum probable yearly loss using the Chebyshev method, you say the expected value plus a value of k, which is always going to be given to you, multiplied by the standard deviation, which you're going to be calculating there. So that's basically what you're going to be looking at in study unit 11. We're going to look at it in detail, but know that no matter what happens, you need to make sure that you understand this, because it's a highly examinable study unit, especially when it comes to calculation of the Chebyshev method as well. Then, now, there is also other, over and apart from purely retaining the risk. Remember we said it's either you retain the risk or you transfer the risk. So we're basically saying that over and above you retaining all the risk, you can also find yourself somewhere in between where you are transferring the risk, but you're not really transferring all the risk. Because remember, when you look at the commercial insurance, which in most cases, this is basically where you're basically saying that I want the insurer to take the risk, right? So there are other methods which are also used to transfer the risk, but not necessarily through the commercial route. So there are other methods where you are finding yourself in between here, where partly you are taking the risk and partly you are transferring the risk. But as you are transferring the risk as well, you're not necessarily going the commercial, the purely commercial insurance route where you just go and buy a particular insurance product purely as a under normal circumstances as well. So this is basically what we refer to as alternative risk transfer. So when you look at alternative risk transfer, that's why you see that they also look at what contingent capital to say, so how is contingent capital a part of transferring the risk? Because remember, with contingent capital, basically saying that you are making an arrangement to say, in case of a loss event, I want to be able to have an arrangement where I have access to capital so that I can use this capital to mitigate the cost of this particular risk as well. So in a way, you are transferring the risk for someone else to give you that capital so that you cover for that loss. But in a way, you are retaining the risk, because at the end of the day, if this money is not basically coming from an insurer, basically coming from an arrangement where you're basically borrowing that money, or you're basically having to issue more shares so that you're able to raise capital and cover for this particular loss as well. So that's basically what is covered under contingent capital. Then another alternative risk transfer method is through finite insurance. And when it comes to finite insurance, this is basically where we're saying that you are going into some sort of insurance arrangement with an insurer, but this arrangement is not a pure commercial type of insurance arrangement, mainly because you are retaining some of the risk and the insurer is also covering for you for some of the risk, but in a limited level for a certain customized type of arrangement. So you are retaining the risk, but at the same time, the insurer is also going to be covering for you. But the way that the insurer is covering for you is basically a customized arrangement where you're saying, you know what, for example, I know that if I suffer a loss today because of a catastrophe, because of a particular loss as well, I might not have enough money available to cover for this loss. So you can go into a finite risk insurance arrangement with an insurer where you tell them that, okay, in case I suffer a loss, I want to be able to be covered for a certain amount of money. But now, over the years, my premiums are going to be paying for you, are going to ensure that whatever I've suffered over this period, I'm going to be reimbursing you over time. So it's more like when you borrow money and then you repay it over a given period of time. It's not exactly the same, but in a way, it's more or less something along those lines. But when it comes to the intricacies of it as well, and how it becomes a unique type of arrangement, we're going to go through it with you in detail as well. Then another way of alternative risk transfer is basically where you can look at what captive insurance. So with captive insurance, this is where a group of companies or a parent company can create its own insurance company. So a parent company can create its own insurance company. And when it creates its own insurance company, the main beneficiary is basically the parent company. To say, in case of a loss event, the insurance company is going to cover the parent company. But over and above that, this captive insurance company as well can also be able to do insurance business where it's able to insure other people or other entities as well. So this is basically where the captive insurance arrangement basically comes in. So, but we'll look at it to see exactly, have a better understanding of exactly what a captive is and how it would be structured as well. So that's what you should expect from topic 4. Moving on to topic 5, you'll see that topic 5 looks at insurance. Remember we said when it comes to risk, study unit 11, you are saying you are retaining the risk. That's basically what we're looking at in study unit 11. We're saying you are retaining the risk. But before you say you want to retain the risk, we need to check to see, do you have, yes, you have a willingness to retain the risk, but do you also have the capacity to retain the risk? So that's basically what we're looking at when it comes to study unit 11. Study unit 12, 13, and 14, we see that, okay, fine, there are other methods that you can also consider to alternatively transfer the risk without necessarily going the commercial insurance route. So that's basically study unit 12 all the way to 14. Now, when it comes to study unit 15, study unit 15 now comes in from topic 5. And topic 5, you see that topic 5 covers study unit, covers risk transfer or insurance, and it covers study unit 15 all the way to study unit 22. Please note, for exam purposes, the lecture over the years has emphasized on study unit 15 and study unit 20. So these are the 2 units that are going to be covering when it comes to your curriculum. So when it comes to your curriculum, in preparing for the exam, on our side, what we're going to be offering you is that we're going to be covering study unit 15 and you study unit 20, because these are the 2 study units which looks at the overview of commercial insurance, so that you're able to understand exactly what really is the commercial insurance route, And also study unit 20, you look at business interruption insurance as well to say, so what is business interruption insurance and how is it relevant when it comes to your overall insurance portfolio as well? So these are the two study units that are going to be looking at when it comes to topic 5. On your own, you can go through the other study units, although the lecturer has never really emphasized them as being relevant for the exam. So when it comes to the exam, we are going to concentrate on overview of commercial insurance and business interruption insurance when it comes to topic 5. Mainly because when we look at over the previous years, the other ones, the lecturer has never really asked anything and has never really emphasized much on those other study units as well. So that's basically what we're going to be looking at when it comes to topic 5. Topic 6 looks at insurance-linked securities and alternative risk transfer. And the topic 6 is a very, very important topic because it also has components which are concepts which are very much or highly examinable as well. So there are certain components which are highly examinable. Now, topic 6 basically now tries to show you the transition of insurance over time, or the evolution of insurance over time. Because remember, over time, historically, when the insurance product were put in place, they were basically saying that, remember, you have the insurer and you have the insured. Where we're saying that the insurer is going to ensure that in case of a loss event, the insured, they're able to what? Indemnify them. But where does the insurer get the money to ensure that they indemnify the insured in case of a claim? So how do they mitigate their risk as well? They would ensure that they have enough money available internally, or they go the reinsurance route, where they can now go into an arrangement with another insurance company to say, are you able to help us cover this particular client? Then we can go into an arrangement where we pay you a premium, and in exchange for a certain portion or a certain percentage of the claim in case of what? Loss event as well. But now, over time, you realize that the money, when you look at the amount of the claims and the amount of money that the insurance companies have, you realize that in case of catastrophic events, insurance companies would be very, very exposed to a situation where they might not be able to what? To pay for these losses in case of a what? Catastrophic event. Like, for example, when you look at it, this is where we saw that in KZN, there were those floods around the country a year or so ago. There was looting of goods in the shops as well. What does that mean? It also means that there was catastrophic losses that were suffered across the country because of these events. So it basically means that if insurance companies did not have instruments in place to ensure that they're able to mitigate those losses in case of a loss event, they would now be forced to be finding themselves where they are now litigating with the clients, where they are now fighting with the clients, where the client wants to pay their money, and the insurance company is now looking for loopholes to say, we're not going to pay you the money. So what do the insurance companies do? They go into the capital market and issue instruments which are where they pay a premium on these issued instruments, and in exchange, in case of a catastrophic loss or a catastrophic event, they are now going to be, they would now be what? They would now be able to raise that money that is needed and then pay off those losses when they come in, when they fall issue as well. Just give me a second. So for them to be able to raise the financing needed to mitigate these claims, especially in case of catastrophic losses. That's where you saw that over time, there has been a merging between the insurance market and the capital markets as well, where the insurance market has been able to issue instruments so that they're able to raise money in the capital markets, so that they use this money that they've raised to what? To mitigate losses in case of what? Catastrophic losses, so that they're able to what? To have enough money so that if the claims are made, they have enough money to pay off those claims as well. So that's basically what is going to be covered under topic 6, which looks at study unit 23. So this is basically the breakdown of what we should expect to cover when it comes to the topics that needs to be covered from study unit 1 all the way to study unit 23. So you see that now remember we said that for the month of March, I don't want to be moving too fast. So I want to make sure that I'm able to accommodate the other students that haven't finished their registration processes, because they extended the due date or the deadline of registration as well. So because of this as well, it also means that what I'm going to do is that I'm going to give students free access to our website as well, so that you're able to access that material while you're busy sorting out your registration as well. You're able to access that material, go through the material as well, and ensure that you are able to start studying in advance as well, so that when we hit the ball running, you are already knowing exactly where is everything and how do we go about everything as well. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to show you how to access material on our website. Once you create a user account as well, I'll show you exactly how to access the material on our website as well. So that's basically what I'm going to do now, so that you're able to know exactly, so that once you're able to, on your own, you're able to know that, okay, I'm supposed to go here and go there and go there. And if I want to access this is basically how I access the material as well. So that's basically what I'm going to show you, which is basically the last part of our induction class, which is today's class as well. So the last part of the induction class, which is today's class, I'm just going to show you how to access that material as well. So to access your material, you need to have gone to our website, which is basically the link. If you don't have the link, I'll also just send me a request and I'll send you the link to our website. But when you go into our website, you just go to student login. And on student login, okay, I was already logged in here. So on student login, just give me a second, I need to log out. So if you go to our website, you will see that you will be able to access this platform. If you don't have a user account as yet, you go to register. Then you put in your email, your username, and you create your password as well. And then you say register. Then on our side, it will show that you've created a user account. But it's not enough, because we need to know exactly which email you're using, and you need to communicate with us as well, so that we know exactly which modules you want access to as well. So for this particular process, if you don't have a user account as yet, go to our website and then you click on register. You indicate your email, you indicate your username, and then you create a password that you remember as well. And then when you say register on our site, it will indicate that you're registered as a student. But over and above that as well, you need to communicate with us so that we're able to link the different courses to you, so that on your platform you're able to access those different courses, because it's not automatic that automatically links you. We need to know which modules you want to be linked for, so that you're able to link those modules as well. Then in future, when you want to now access the information on your user account, in future now you're just going to go to login, and on login you're going to either indicate your email or your username, and then you indicate your password. Then automatically, when you click on login, it will log in for you. So that's basically what I'm going to do now, because I've already created a username and a user account for myself, so that I can use it for demonstrative purposes as well. So when you log in as well, you will see that, so when you log in, you will see that it takes you to this page, which shows you student login. And on this particular page, it will be indicating your username that you've indicated as well. And it will also indicate the courses that you're enrolled for. So which means if there are different courses that you're enrolled for, it will also indicate the courses that you're going to be enrolled for as well. So whatever course you want to access, like for example, now, if you want to be able to access risk financing, you're now just going to go on and click risk financing. Then it will take you to the next page. Then on the next page, it will either give you the overview, the curriculum, and then it will give you information on the instructor. But you need to click on curriculum, because on curriculum, this is basically where it shows you the videos and or the link to all other materials that you need, whether it's the videos, whether you want to download the textbook or the articles, or you want to download any revision material as well, you're able to find it under this curriculum. So you see that under curriculum, you will see that it will give you the videos. The first thing that you see there is the videos from the different study units. So from study unit 1 going onwards, you will start seeing the videos of those study units as well. So when you click on show more sections, it will now continue to show you information from study unit 1 all the way to study unit 23 as well. So for you to continue going down the different study units, you need to click on what? Show more sections as well. So when you click on show more sections there, it will now show you the information of the different study units as well. So if you keep on clicking, depending on exactly which study unit you want to be able to access, you just have to keep on what? Clicking show more sections. Then, so it will show you all the sections all the way up to the different, so you see that you keep going down. So far as we are going down, it has shown us the sections from study unit 1 all the way to study unit 23. So you see that when you click there, it should be able to give you the information, although for this particular package, we have limited access from study unit 1 to study unit 3. So we've given you access to the study units. If you are going to, so which means that if you are going to be paying your installments on a monthly basis as and when, we also make sure that we also give you the videos of the previous years as and when as well, so that when you every month when you pay your installments as well, before we cover a particular topic as we are going, we also make sure that we give you the video from the previous year before each class as well. So before every class, when you're preparing for the coming classes as well, we make sure that we give you the videos of the previous study units. So you will see that here, it will give you a breakdown of the videos where we're discussing study unit 1 to 1.5, study unit 1.6 as well. And please take note, the videos recorded for each year, they are also written the year at the end. So the videos that were recorded in 2021, they are written 2021 at the end. The videos that were also recorded for year 2022, they are written what? 2022 at the end. So please take note so that you're able to distinguish between the videos from each year, whether it's year 2021 or year 2022. So which means that even the videos that are going to be recording for unit for year 2023 as well, you will see that the information of the study units will end with the year in which the video was recorded as well, which means that for year 2023, it would mean that the video is going to be indicating 2023 at the end of the description there. Now, when you scroll down there, after learning unit 23, remember you have been clicking on show more sections, isn't it? After learning unit 2023, so after learning unit 23, then it will give you an option to say articles. So this is, if you click on this tab, this is how you are going to be able to access the articles for the different study units as well. So if you click on Rsk4803 articles, you will see that it will take you to the Google Drive. It will give you a link for the Google Drive. Then if you click on this link to the Google Drive, you will see that this is how you're able to now access the different articles for the different study units. Like for example, for unit 3, if you click on the folder for unit 3 there, you will see that the articles that you need to be able to download is for unit 3.2, 3.3, all those different study units as well. You're going to be able to access the articles for all this. So this is basically how you're able to download the articles for the different study units. So you see that Here in this case, we have limited, for this particular package, we have limited the access to the study, to the articles up to study unit 3. If you are on the platform where your package is the premium, which is the one way you pay upfront, and you get all your material upfront as well, you will see that you'll be able to access the videos and the articles from study unit 1 all the way to study unit 2023. And if it's the premium package, it also means that the videos of the question papers and the memos as well for revision as well, immediately you're able to access them if you choose the premium package. But if you're on the diamond package, it means that you're not going to be able to access all that material all at once. Then now, if you go backwards, where you were at the different study units as well, which was showing where you were looking at the different study units as well, you will see that you will see that there is also different. It also shows you the different. Remember, you're basically seeing the section where if you go backwards, you see that there's learning unit 23, and there's now the show. I've already shown you where you find the different articles as well. If you click on show more sections as well, you are now continuing to go down, right? Now, as you go down as well, for this particular package, you don't have access as yet to revision material, because when you have access to the revision material, if you click on this tab, you should be able to access the revision material. And the revision material basically is where you're now going to be able access to the past assignments and the official memos to the past assignments. And then you're able to access the videos. So you're able to not the videos are below here. You're able to access the question papers and the memos as well, because if you click on revision material, it will give you a the link to the Google Drive where you're able to access the question papers, you're able to access the memos to the question papers, you're able to access the past assignments and also the memos to the past assignments as well. If you click on what? Revision material. Although for this particular package, you're not able to access it as yet, you'll be able to access it after towards beginning of October, because from beginning of October, that's when we start giving you access to the revision material, because we should, by end of October, we should be done going through the articles going through the study units where we're now going to be concentrating on what? On revision as well. Then if you keep clicking on show more sections, you will see that you are now going to be able to access the videos of the past papers and the past assignments for the years. In this case, it's from year 2018. The reason why it's from year 2018 is mainly because the exam for 2017 was based on the previous textbook. And because it was based on the previous textbook, we didn't see the need for us to give you that material, because it's not relevant for you to be able to know when it comes to the new curriculum as well. And because of this, the 2017 going backwards, the videos, we've removed them from access there, mainly because they're no longer relevant for your curriculum. So if you click on show more sections there, you will see that you are now going to be able to access the material for 2018, the past paper questions, and the assignments as well for 2018 all the way through to 2022. And remember, for all these years, you have the access to the January, February, the new Jan, Feb, and the May, June as well. So this is basically what where we ended, where we're covering going through the material for 2022 all the way to the assignments for 2022, and also the question papers, the Jan, Feb, and the May, June 2022 papers. So this is basically what we're going to be seeing. So you will see that as we go through the year as well, you will see that there's going to be another tab which gives you access to the videos for the assignments for 2023. And then it will also give you another tab which gives you the video for the January 2023 paper and the video for the May, June 2023 paper as well. So which means that for 2023, we're going to update that as we go, depending on exactly when we do that material as well. So is there any question regarding accessing material from the website? So what we'll now ask you to do is that if you could go onto the website, create the user account for yourself. But remember, when you create that user account, make sure that you are able to notify us to say, I've created a user account. Can you please give me access? And you indicate the modules that you want access to. So when you send us a WhatsApp message on the WhatsApp number, make sure that you indicate that I've created a user account. You indicate the email that you've indicated on the user account, and then you also indicate the modules that you want access to, so that in the meantime, while we are preparing to hit the ground running as well, we are going to ensure that what you are able to now start studying in advance, so that by the time we start covering in detail, study unit 1, study unit 2, going onwards as well, you would have already covered that material, and you'll be able to ask questions where you don't understand. Because remember, if you study in advance, you realize that you understand the material better, because you are able to ask a question in the class on things that you don't understand, so that I'm also able to give you a more detailed explanation, and where there's need, even give you examples which basically relates to whatever we're going to be covering as well. The reason why I'm emphasizing this is mainly because, remember, we are now in an age where we are now giving classes online. So if it was a class where I'm able to see people's faces, when you explain something and you can see certain faces, you are now you can see that, yeah, people, they don't understand. Maybe I need to explain further. But because I'm not able to see people's faces, I'm just talking to myself in a way, it also means that I need to be in a position where if you need to ask questions, because if you don't ask questions, I'll assume people understand as well. So for you to be able to benefit more because of the online setting as well, please ensure that you're able to ask questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question or as a silly question as well. You will see that these stupid questions, if you don't ask them, they will be lingering and affecting other study units as you go on as well. And then it ends up confusing your understanding of risk financing as well. So to avoid that, please ensure that as we go to the classes as well, if there's anything that you don't understand when we go to the different concepts, please make sure that you're able to ask questions as well. So the more questions you're able to ask, the more I'm able to give you more information in detail, and the better you're able to understand the different concepts as well. So are there any questions on what we've covered so far when it comes to the overview? Any questions? All right. So if there are no questions, let's end here today. Please note, for the class, according to the timetable for the next class, right, we are going to be looking at study unit 1. Then from study unit 1, we move on to study unit 2. So please make sure that once you create a user account on our website, please ensure that you are able to download the articles, so that you already have the articles in advance. Also, please go through the videos from the previous year, because if you're able to go through that video from the previous year as well, you're able to have a better understanding of exactly what is covered. In a way, it's like you're having a class in advance. You're having a class in advance through the videos, then you can have a class through the online classes. Well, you see that if you're able to do that, I know that as honors students, you get very busy as we go through the year as well. So it's not all the time that you're able to study in advance, but try attend as many of the online classes as possible. That's very, very important as well, because the more classes you're able to attend there, the better you're able to have an understanding of exactly the concepts as well. Although we try ensure that you're not going to be missing out by giving you access to the videos. So please, if you're not able to attend the classes, make sure that without failure, you go over the video. Then if there's something you still don't understand when you go through the video as well, send me a WhatsApp message so that I'm able to attend to your query as well. So please make sure that you're able to create a user account and indicate to me which modules you want me to give you access to. But please make sure that this is limited access between now until the 31st of March. So make sure that in the period in between now until the 31st of March as well, you are able to complete the official registration with us, because there's a registration form that we need to send you as well. So make sure that you're able to complete the official registration with us, because if you're not officially registered with us, by the 31st of March, you will see that by the 1st of April, you are not going to be able to access the information, the material on the website. So you're not going to be able to access that because remember, from the 1st of April, we're going to be giving you even more access to more study units. We're going to be able to give you access to the rest of the articles as well from the 1st of April, because that's when we're going to be saying, okay, these are the people that we are registered with, and these are the people that have not registered with us. So those who have not registered with us by the 31st of March, you see that your access to the website is going to be cancelled by the 31st of March. So make sure that before then, you're able to officially register with us as well. So please make sure that you're able to do that so that you don't have any inconvenience. Then once you are registered with us as well, we are going to be creating two separate groups for those students who are saying that they want to have a trial class. And then we are going to create another group for students who are saying, yes, we are officially registered with you as well. So you will see that from April going onwards as well, those ones in the trial class group as well, you're not going to be able to receive the information regarding the classes going forward as well. Because remember, our access details and the passwords, they basically change every class as well. So please make sure that you take note of that. So to avoid any inconvenience, please try as much as possible to ensure that you're officially registered with us before the 31st of March. And to register with us, send me your email address on the WhatsApp number. Then I'll send you the registration form from our official website as well. So from our official website, you'll be able to receive the registration form from info@RIM Institute as well. So you're going to be able to receive the registration form, complete the registration form, and then the moment you send it back to us, it means that we have already have you on our database, which means that you're now officially registered as well. Are there any questions? So before the next class, please ensure that you're able to access and download at least the articles for study unit 1 and study unit 2 at least, because we are going to be going through study unit 1 and then moving on to study unit 2 as well. All right, if there are no questions, enjoy the rest of your weekend.